What's going on, Jeromes? So, as we know, last offseason, adofo-mensah absolutely cooked in free agency. Draft TBD if J.J. McCarthy and Diamond Dallas Turner and Will Rackard turn out to be nail drivers. We're good to go. But the free agent class was definitely tier one, perhaps the best free agent class in NFL history. Jonathan Grenard, Blake Cashman outside. How about that? Andrew Van Ginkel, Aaron Jones, Stephon Gilmore, not even mentioning slinging Sammy Darnold, a.k.a. America's quarterback, right? So you had multiple Pro Bowlers, AVG and Grenard started in the Pro Bowl and all that stuff, and it was really good to see. And Kwesi, 2022 draft aside, things have certainly gotten better, and the Vikings, by the way, the Vikings did all this last year with about $39 million in cap space, and they extended Jefferson and Darrisaw. So Kwesi was absolutely on one, and Kwesi showed that in terms of talent evaluation and assessment, the organization and Kwesi making the final decision, pretty damn good at assigning free agents in the offseason. The Vikings will definitely have to do that again this year, but just looking back, so the Vikings edge rushing room, they hammered down. They got after it, they made it a priority, and they absolutely hit it. So the Vikings edge room, they lost Daniil, they lost DJ Wanham, they lost Marcus Davenport, and the Vikings hammered down in terms of free agency as well as in the draft. So here's the blueprint of what Kwesi did last year. Jonathan Grenard had a career season, 12 sacks. Tier 1 free agent, making $19 million per year, third highest paid edge rusher in free agency last offseason. So premium player, premium position, the Vikings got after it. Andrew Van Ginkel on a steal of a deal, 2 years, $20 million, $10 million per year. He had a hell of a season as well, career high in sacks, 2 pick sixes. AVG was doing the damn thing. And then a tier 3 free agent, Hadi Ward, coming in a couple million, and he certainly was significant. Was a rotational pass rusher, second on the team in quarterback hits, had a career high in pressures as well. So getting value from all three tiers of free agency, the highest paid one, the medium paid, as well as the value free agent. That's exactly what the Vikings did. And also making moves and getting Diamond Dallas Turner out of Alabama. Now, I understand 3.5 sacks, 1 interception, blah, blah, blah. Playing about 27% of the Viking snaps this year. He's going to grow and show and turn into one of the talisman on the edge for the Vikings. And then UDFA wise, putting a premium at the position, paying up for guys like Gabriel Murphy from UCLA, hitting on Bo Richter from Air Force, and now the Vikings edge rushing room, where there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of schematic change over the last couple of years, going to a 2-3-4. I mean, the Vikings and Kwesi hit it out of the park, and they showed what they could do. We're committing resources to a position that they need to improve, and don't tell me that it takes multiple years to flip over a roster. The Vikings did this one off season. So now the Vikings have one of the best edge rooms in the game. And with Andrew Van Ginkel as well as John Grenard, you had Hadi Ward, like we said, and Diamond Dallas Turner, who's going to be that guy, and Murphy and Richter. Now, Murphy and Richter. Now, the Vikings have needs at defensive interior as well as interior offensive line, and Kwesi can hammer both of those positions in a similar fashion to edge. Now, obviously, the team has other needs, and there's only so much free agent cash. The Vikings have around $62 million in cap space, as well as they're a little bit short on draft picks, but they can definitely hammer both of those spots. And so just back of the envelope, like this is examples. Like the players certainly could change, but in terms of a example of how the Vikings attacked edge last year, how they could attack defensive interior as well as offensive interior offensive line. Just imagine for a second what the Vikings would look like if they hit both these positions like this, and they have some cap and they have some picks, and they get after things. But defensive interior, so tier 1 free agent Milton Williams, probably going to get about $20 million per year. That's your premium guy, just like Grenard. Tershawn Wharton actually might get paid. All right, so the unsung hero for the Chiefs defensive line. He's been a rotational guy for years. I think he's ready to be a full-time player. He'd be great at that 5-tech, kick inside, 3-tech, all that spot, getting instant pressure and just getting after things. And then to Daryl Slayton, hadn't really panned out with the Packers, but he's a nose tackle that I really love coming out of Florida a couple of years ago. So you can get him for relatively cheap. So those will be your tiers of free agents. You got Milton Williams starting as a 5-tech, Deshaun Wharton going to be the other one, TJ Slayton as an early down nose tackle, as well as some pass rushing upside. You're good to go. And then high draft pick, Vikings at 24, Derek Harmon, Oregon, Kenneth Grant, Michigan, Walter Nolan, Ole Miss. TJ Sanders, South Carolina. There's no shortage of players high in the draft that the Vikings could take for the defensive tier. Then UDFA, I love me some Joe Evans from UTSA, where I love the small school plus size nose tackle with upside. Last year was Evan Anderson from Florida Atlantic. This year is Joe Evans from UTSA. Let's go. So again, in terms of comparison to how the Vikings crushed edge, that's the blueprint of what the Vikings could and should do, because they have the resources, they have the motivation. Now, interior offensive line, similar thing. Now, with both positions having needs, probably can't hit on both of them, but there can be some sort of combination of the three. So an example of how the Vikings can hit an interior offensive line, Trey Smith. Yes, I don't care about the Super Bowl. He won 2 previous Super Bowls. Perhaps you heard of them. But consistently, over the last 4 years, one of the best right guards in the National Football League. Pay for it. So, $20 million per year. That's your premium guy, just like Grenard on the edge. Ryan Kelly, the veteran center, would be an upgrade over Bradbury. Do you get 2-3 years out of Kelly? Probably, but also that buys you time to have a better succession plan at center. Getting a better look at Michael Juergens or sinking draft capital into the position. And then Kelly, he's not going to cost through the nose either. And then you got tier 3 free agent Ben Cleveland from the Ravens. Now, I liked him a lot coming out of Georgia 4 years ago. Hasn't quite found his way with the Ravens, but has positional flexibility. I think he's played all 5 spots over the last 4 years with the Ravens. Does have some upside at minimum, being a decent swing backup with some size and getting after things. High draft pick, of course, Tyler Booker from Alabama, set it and forget it at left guard. Then Nash Jones from Texas State. He's 6'5", 320, former left tackle, kicked inside. Definitely has some upside there. So in terms of how the Vikings can attack the interior offensive line as well as defensive interior, it does make you hopeful about the future, because the Vikings are pretty much good to go everywhere else outside of corner and maybe safety, depending what happens there. And yeah, there is a squeeze on resources, but remember, the Vikings did this with 50% less cap space last year. And yeah, they did use some of the draft picks from this year to make sure they got J.J. McCarthy and Diamond Dallas Turner, but that's perfectly fine, because the Vikings, they got the free agent money. They can go out and get some dudes. They can suture up a lot of positions, and they can be very competitive very quickly. And defensive interior as well as interior offensive line has been an issue for quite some time, but they can fix it. And Kwesi has a chance to absolutely cook and sizzle yet again in free agency. And then hopefully we can get to the spot where the Vikings are amassing draft picks through comp picks as well as through trades, and the Vikings can just go BPA the rest of the way. But hopefully just really hammering defensive line, because you see how the Eagles do it. Not only do they have one of the best offensive lines in the game, defensively, first, second, third, fourth round, they're constantly adding just dudes who can get after the quarterback. And that's what the Vikings need to do. But your thoughts are thoughts. How Kwesi and the Vikings can take their example from edge rusher last year and apply it to defensive interior as well as interior offensive line this year. Completely flip the script, change the game in one off season. Let us know your thoughts, our thoughts, comment section. You guys are the best you know what to do. Skull production value.